Hi, my lovelies. Woo here. Welcome to another episode of Somatic Navigation. Today's topic is about your feet and foundational issues. So, kind of navigating again through the fascia. So, I'll give you a quick little recap of fascia. Fascia is that stuff that covers your entire body. It's the stuff that covers every individual muscle cell and then covers a bundle of cells and then keeps grouping those together with another piece of fascia around it until the whole thing becomes your muscle, and each side of the fascia that is kind of encasing it is now those tendons that hold it on to your bones. So, and it also, fascia also covers every bone in your body. It also covers every organ in your body. And then there's also just a whole bunch of fascia that kind of help keep things in place, like keep your organs in place and things like that. So fascia is really important because it's your biggest organ in your body. It's covers more than even your skin. So that's another thing to kind of think about. And it all talks to each other from your head to your toes. So all of this stuff is related. And if you were to get like, a little wrinkle in your face, it could end up being an issue in your foot kind of thing. Like that's how connected your fascia is. So anytime your fascia kind of goes through a process where it's repetitively used, sometimes it gets stuck in that position, it gets little tears. It's very Velcro-y to the point where when you go to try to pull it apart underneath a microscope, it has all these like little strings that kind of come off. It looks like cotton candy and it's very sticky. So your fascia should kind of be a little bit smooth and run and glide and kind of flow, but sometimes things happen where we tear the fascia or get kind of in a repetitive motion, and that kind of also shapes the fascia. Even sometimes the clothes that we wear also kind of shapes how the fascia holds us together. So with that kind of in mind, today again, like I said, we're going to talk about the feet and how it is your foundation. So your feet are, like I said, your foundation. Your right side versus your left side. So your right side is going to be kind of from your father's lineage, and your left side is going to be more of your mother's lineage. So if you kind of think about it that way, thinking about what the issue is, what kind of trauma, what kind of emotional thing that your feet might be holding, it kind of plays into what side of the family it's from. Sometimes it's a little harder to kind of get at if you're adopted or you don't know your parents for whatever reason, or you don't know like your family lineage, that kind of thing. Sometimes it's not always about your parents. Sometimes it's about like 5 generations back. And then it gets a little tricky on like how to navigate that, because again, they're probably not alive, so you can't really confirm with them on what is going on. So we're doing a little bit of work on the feet here. So something that I have a little trouble with on my my right side is that I have a little bit of trouble keeping my heel on the ground, my heel dug in kind of thing. So I'm just going to kind of, with that in mind, like I even walk a little bit more on the ball of my foot, especially with this foot. So today what I kind of want to work on is kind of going through a little bit of what I would do to help myself with that. One of the things is that I would just kind of put my foot out, and I am kind of just putting my heel forward and just pushing that way. And that sometimes can help release some of this fascia up the back of my leg here and hopefully into my hip, and that will kind of help push things forward and get my heel to connect a little bit more with the ground when I stand up. Sometimes I do this against a wall where I'm a little bit like an inch or so away that's comfortable, and I'm kind of really reaching with that heel to kind of push it forward. But I think kind of what I want to work a little bit more on today is just being able to curl my toes and kind of build up my arch a little bit better. So like I have an arch here. When I stand, it's a little bit less. So that's one of the things that I kind of want to work on is you've got these muscles in your leg here that connect to your feet. That's kind of what holds your arch up and kind of brings it up. So I'm just going to kind of keeping all of this in mind that, you know, I've got a little bit of an arch issue and my heel doesn't always want to hit the floor. So these are kind of things that I'm noticing as before I get started on doing this. So I have a little bit of a baseline on what to look for afterwards and see what the changes were and how that kind of affected things. So I'm going to start with just kind of rolling around my ankle and see what happens, see if there's anything that like sticks out. Foot kind of immediately wanted to go into this position. It's activating all these muscles up here on both sides a little bit. I'm noticing it's activating things through here as well. And I'm just noticing as I move my leg a little bit, kind of what the difference is. So now I'm kind of I'm putting some pressure down on my last 3 toes here, and I'm noticing that it's also opening up this ankle joint a little bit. I also do have a history of ankle sprains in this ankle, so that's another thing to kind of to think about and keep in mind. And I'm also just kind of noticing I've had a little bit of plantar fasciitis kind of stuff in the play up in the past. I've also there's these 2 little sesamoid bones right underneath your like the ball of your foot here. I've also broken those. So like there's a lot of things kind of going on here in my foot. So I'm kind of also noticing that, and like this kind of feels, I can feel it from my big toe kind of going all the way up here. I feel like that's probably a pretty significant connection. I'm now feeling some stuff actually activate in my hip, and just noticing the relationship between my hip and what's going on here in my foot. It's not really bringing up any emotions at the moment. It's not really bringing up any specific trauma or anything that's coming to mind that's like flashing at me like, hey, you need to work on this right now too. So I don't have any pulse points to work on. But I am noticing that as I do this, it's getting a little bit more relaxed, especially on the top of my foot here. I'm going to go kind of back to baseline, wiggle it around a little bit and see what changed. I am noticing that right underneath here really got activated. So like as I'm moving, and that was something I didn't notice before. So that is something that I'm becoming more aware of now. And then I wanted to go back to this. Again, I didn't really think about what I was doing. I just kind of, it just didn't feel done yet. So I just let my body do what it wanted to do. And so this is kind of just working on, you know, this kind of movement, see how that works. Now I feel like I really want to put some pressure on my my toes here. I am noticing that as I put pressure with my heel, it actually feels a lot better. I'm feeling it all the way up into this point right here, which is right about my fibular head, which is that bone here on the side. You've got 2 bones. You got the big one here, and then you've got this other smaller bone here for your lower leg bones. And I'm just kind of noticing how it's adding a little pressure right there. But it's not, again, it's not uncomfortable. It doesn't feel like something's going to tear or prop or anything like that. I'm just noticing and I'm aware of it. Now I'm noticing as I put more pressure on my big and toe, my second toe, that I'm getting a little bit more stretch here on my arch. And now my toes are kind of clenching right now as when I poked my arch a little bit, it activated my toes, so I'm just allowing it to do that. And in this position and seeing what happens, I've still got my hand on that same spot in my arch just to kind of keep it doing what it's doing and see what happens. My 3rd, 4th, and 5th toe don't feel like they're really activated anymore. It's more like just my 1st and 2nd toe just feel like they're kind of curling a little bit with it. And now it's starting to relax, and I'm noticing that the tension in my arch kind of changed a little bit. So I'm gonna kind of move my foot around and see what happened. That spot that I was talking about earlier has changed. It does feel like there's still something there. So I'm gonna put my finger there and see what it wants to do. It still wants to really like kind of, cramp up a little bit. It doesn't feel very cramp-y though. It just feels like, that those muscles really want to activate. I am noticing that my foot feels like it's kind of like where it's normally a little bit like this. You should have a little bit of an arch kind of through here, and I'm noticing that arch wants to get a little bit bigger as I'm doing this. So that's probably a good thing. That's probably something that's fallen a little bit over the years for me. And I am noticing that this has started to activate my fourth toe a little bit, and just kind of noticing how that changes. And now I'm going back into pushing down that big toe, and just kind of noticing that a little bit. So I'm going to go back to baseline, see what happened, see what changed. It feels like some things really opened up, especially underneath here. I'm noticing a little bit more tightness on the top of my foot, especially on the outside here. The inside feels a little bit better than it did earlier before I started. I'm noticing as I move my foot around kind of what it wants to do. And again, my big toe kind of wants to go down. So I'm just going to kind of let it do that. My toe is kind of pressing, not too firmly into the ground, but just a little bit. And I'm feeling this kind of all through my arch on the inside. These guys feel like they're just kind of like, I don't know, move around a little bit. They're not really, now they're coming down, they all seem to be there, and it just feels like something just kind of relaxed in my foot. So I'm going to kind of, again, go back to baseline, let my foot kind of roll around, see what happened, notice any differences. I feel like something in here changed too, which is, it's normal because, again, like I said, these muscles up here also connect down to your feet. So you do have some that are intrinsic muscles that are just in your foot, but you've got a lot of these muscles up here that also kind of go down and move your toes, and hold up your arch, and move your ankle and stuff like that, and they all attach here in your foot. So I'm just kind of noticing if there's anything else that I kind of want to work on right now, and that feels pretty good, except for now I'm noticing that it's really starting to tighten up again. So I'm just going to let it do that for a minute and see what happens. And it feels like right through here, kind of like the back part of my midfoot is kind of starting to feel a little bit tighter than the front here. This part of it feels a little bit more malleable, a little bit more movable and mobile, which is good. You should have some movement in your foot. Obviously, it's not going to have a whole lot of crazy movement or anything, but you should have some. It shouldn't feel quite like a brick or anything like that. So that's kind of what we're working on today, and I think that might be about all we have time for. But one more quick check, and yeah, I am noticing that things did change a little bit. Most of the tightness feels like it's right through here versus underneath kind of my third and fourth toe like it was earlier, maybe my second toe, but it felt like it's moved more to the top of my foot. So I think that I'll leave it there for today, and I hope that you enjoyed this video, and we'll see you next time. Again, you can check out any of my videos on Somato Enlightenment on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram, and we'll see you then.